We have a really interesting program this morning, and it's provided by a good friend and the president of the Lenore City Rotary Club, and it's Jan Berry. She's the Tennessee State Coordinator for Citizens Climate Lobby and Inroads Ambassador, a member of the American Nuclear Society Policy Committee, and it's the natural extension of her 35-year career at ORNL. And she spent her career managing programs to clean up DOE's Cold War waste across the US and managing advanced energy projects, both nationally and international. In one particular, the ITER project. For what, 8 years, 10 years? How many? 11 years. So she holds a bachelor's and master's degree in chemical engineering. And Jan, thanks for being here.
So
put those links on the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Okay. Is it okay if I take off my mask?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think I'll feel a little more comfortable to talk. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me come. This is such an awesome opportunity to talk to the Oak Ridge Breakfast Club. What a beautiful sunrise you have. No wonder you all come out so early in the morning to be able to see this, and such an active club. I am not changing my slide, which is really unusual for me. So Tony's going to help me out here. So we're going to talk about the four-way test in climate. So Catherine Hayhoe is a world-renowned climate scientist, and she wrote this book, which is a really good book. And in the very beginning of it, she talks about Rotary Club and her meetings with Rotary Club and how she had worked with Rotary. And she said she saw the four-way test, and she said, you know, what people really want to do is connect on values. And so she said what she did with her talk to Rotary was to go through the four-way test and compare it with climate change action and decide, you know, whether it was consistent. And it's so let's think about the four-way test. Whoop, go back. Let's think about the four-way test in climate. Is it true that climate is changing? Is changing climate fair to all concerned? Will solutions to changing climate build goodwill and better friendships? Will the solutions be beneficial to all concerned? Well, let's think through that. Okay, so, you know, if it is true that our climate is changing, there's over 26,000 independent lines of evidence that demonstrate that it is changing. These are photos that I pulled off the internet of Waverly, Tennessee, back in August when the floods occurred. It's estimated to cause $54 trillion by 2040 of climate change damages. This is an increase in storms and that sort of thing. Is it not? It's not working. I like to move. I like to move around is my problem. Okay, so I'll stand still. Very difficult. New records have been set for billion-dollar disasters. So every year we're having about $120 billion a year of damages now. Okay. Okay, you can change the slide. All right, so I'm not going to belabor the point that climate is changing, but this is a, you know, atmospheric CO2 is higher than any time in the last 800,000 years, and levels are increasing faster. Probably most of you had seen this this information about the, I think this works, yeah, about the dramatic increase in carbon dioxide in the outer atmosphere since 1950. So go ahead. And then where does that come from? It comes from burning of fossil fuels. Of course, burning of fossil fuels has made it possible for us to have all these lights, to be able to drive here, to have the lifestyle that we have, and we have to be thankful for that. But it's also, you know, the burning of coal, gas, and this is like industrial emissions from making cement, and then land use changes are where all this carbon dioxide is coming from. Anytime you have a combustion process and you're burning a fossil fuel, you're going to have to create CO2. So This is a graph from most recent IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, where they actually have reconstructed what the temperature was back to the year 1, and then also show the observed temperature. And you can see that the global temperature increase is unprecedented in the last 2,000 years. Thank you. And it's the warmest multi-century increase in more than 100,000 years. And there weren't any people on Earth 100,000 years ago. So go ahead. Humans have caused this. This is also from IPCC. Humans have caused this global temperature increase. I think it's real important to understand that now the scientists are able to actually simulate what the natural change in temperature would be had there not been any human-caused carbon emissions. And you see that that's just consistent with what it has always been. And this is the observed, simulated and natural human. Now this is IPCC, if you're not aware of it, each government in this intergovernmental panel that met in Glasgow appoints scientists to review all these data, and there's 243 scientists that have to agree on what is published. So that's a basis for this. So is the changing climate fair to all concerned? Well, there were 197 different examples that the New York Times put together of climate change. Uzbekistan, there's dust storms that are increasingly severe. In Vietnam, there's been flooding. In the United States, flooding is a top climate problem in our area. In fact, it showed Anderson County is a flooding risk. In Australia, and of course in California, there's fires. All of these storms are increasing in intensity and potentially in frequency. Pretty soon, climate scientists should be able to demonstrate and model how much more intense the storms are because of climate change. That information should be coming out pretty soon now. Okay. So what happens at 2 degrees C? If you follow climate science and climate action at all, you've probably heard that what we're trying to do is hold the temperature increase to 2 degrees C, but that isn't that great. Actually, at 2 degrees C, the risk of flooding is more than doubles. 90% of coral reefs are bleached. Drought is 4 months longer, and over 50% of the world's population is exposed to lethal heat. So it doesn't seem like climate change is fair to all concerned. So go ahead. Will solutions to changing climate build goodwill and better friendships? So I don't like to dwell on all the things I just talked about. What I like to do is think about actions. What can we do to make a difference? And again, I'm referring back to the IPCC, and now I'm going to get really technical, but I think since all of you live in Anchorage, that you probably should be able to follow this without any problem. These are the different models of climate action that the IPCC and others have followed. So you'll see here, each one has different scenarios where action is taken to reduce carbon emissions. And the temperature increase changes based on which scenario we're considering. This is the one that we're on right now. 7 is where we are right now with 3.6 degree increase by 2100. And so the good news is that we were on this 8.5. So action that's been taken has reduced the potential for the increase in temperature, and we can continue those actions. 50%, enough countries meet their 50% cut by 2030, then we can be on this path number 1.9, which keeps us in an area that's pretty sustainable. 137 countries have a goal of carbon neutrality, most by 2050. Problem is, not all the countries have said how they're going to do that. So we'll go on to the next slide. What I'm going to talk about now is this Inroads model. This is an MIT Sloan model that's developed, and it's easy to run, and I'm going to try to get you all to help me with this. So go ahead. This model is calibrated very well. All those scenarios that I just talked about for reducing carbon emissions are modeled here with these world peer-reviewed models in the bubbles and the white lines. And the dark lines are where this Inroads model calibrates with those models very well. So if we're on this preferred model of this preferred action scenario of this 1.9 it's called, then we can get to having no carbon emissions, what they call carbon neutrality, which is where the amount of carbon being put into the air is the same, is all withdrawn by the world or other actions. So this is where we want to be. So this is Inroads. Many governments are incentivizing this 50% cut by charging for carbon pollution. So that's one of the actions that I've been working on, is thinking about charging for the pollution that goes into the air, because now every time we have, power plants don't have to pay for the carbon that goes into the air, but it's causing significant damage. So these are, you can see the different highlighted countries and how they are either considering or have implemented a carbon tax or a carbon fee. Where the arguments come in is, what do you do with the money that comes from the fossil fuel industry? That's a big topic of discussion. Go ahead. And also companies understand the benefit of taking action. Clothing brands, double energy efficiency real important. Over 260 of the world's largest companies have committed to 100% clean energy by 2050. That would be that would help with carbon neutrality. Microsoft has pledged to be carbon negative by 2030. You may see when you go on Google that Google says it's already carbon neutral. So companies are taking independent action, even without having great incentives. So go ahead. And guess what? Rotary was actually at COP26. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in Glasgow. We had 4 representatives there, and Rotarians are connecting with leaders in government, science, and business, delivering the news that Rotary is now mobilized to mitigate climate change. There was an official delegation, and even our Rotary International president was involved in the Commonwealth countries booth at Glasgow. He declared support for 7 mangrove projects in India, and one delegate was there and represented the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and I put a link here to that group. So that's an active and emerging focus area for Rotary. Okay, so will the solutions be beneficial to all concerned? Well, right now we're on a trajectory to get to 3.6 degrees C by 2100. And what we'd like to be is 1.5 to 2 degrees C. So let's see, how can we do that? Go ahead. I put this handout on the table. And so this Inroads model that I was talking about, the MIT model, has 18 different actions that can be taken that are options for how to reduce carbon emissions. They're grouped into energy supply, over here on the left, transport, land and industrial emissions, and carbon removal. So these 18 different ways that you can reduce, that we as a world population can reduce carbon emissions. And so what I'd like to do now is go to the model, and I need to go over to the table. What I'd like for you all to do is to tell me what you'd like to do about climate change, and I'll model it, and we'll see what difference it makes. So this is a picture of the model, and again, it's got energy supply on the left, transport in the middle, and energy efficiency, growth and industry, land and industry emissions, and carbon removal. So let's look at this model. We're going to pull it up online, and we're going to model what it is that you would like to do to reduce carbon emissions. And how much time do we have? Oh, this thing here?
Yeah, that way it'll
Okay.
have this
That one.
and this, both of them. Yeah.
All right. So Tony is going to help me out. He's going to call on people, and I'm going to model.
So that button on the left is where you're running the model, right?
The button on the left.
Is that right?
Yes, that's a link.
Right, that's the link?
Mhm.
Go ahead. Let's see if it works.
It should. Okay, now all we got to do is get the share screen to go to. We
I
need
don't think
that
it's
up.
gonna go to that one though.
Okay. Well, that's not good.
No.
Well, is this computer? Where is that showing from?
I'd have to take this share screen down and put.
Yeah,
that-
yeah, that's okay. That's
Okay, hold
easy
on.
to do. That's very easy to do. Is that coming off of Zoom up there?
Let's see, we gotta stop share and come back to the model, right?
Well, not always, but
Stop share. We gotta close that down. And then,
here's the Zoom. Here, share.
here, let me look.
Okay, you share that screen. So you guys all be thinking about what you're doing while we figure this out. Yes, sir. I can't hear.
Yeah. Exchange.
He said to stop generating it with coal and replace it with generated by nuclear. I don't know if I can get to that level of detail. There's a really cool button that you can push to stop any new coal-fired power plants that being built. So I'll push that button and we'll incentivize nuclear. Okay.
Okay, hold on, let's see if I can get on, I'll just get on Inroads, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. You should just be able to share that. I do that all the time. Oh, well. Anyway, we'll do that one. Okay. Next. Yes, sir.
Like 80% of the state is electric.
Yeah, we can do that. See that electrification of transport up there? We can do that. Okay.
My understanding of the individual streets.
Yeah. I can't model that.
Jan, we're not gonna be able to do this.
Yes, you can.
Well,
No, you can't.
well, yeah, right, okay.
All you have to do is share that screen.
What, this screen?
You start collecting.
No, you collect it. Okay. It doesn't click on that.
No, it's okay. Here.
Go ahead.
You,
All right, other suggestions?
you're remembering all these too, right?
Oh, of course, right. Luckily, we're a little ahead of time, so.
Okay, good. So all we need to do is share this screen, right? So did you get off Zoom?
No, click the Zoom button, blue down there.
Okay. All right, that's a good,
Just click that, click in the picture.
okay.
Click over here, the picture.
Well, there. Okay. Whale buoy.
Here, let me see if I can get that back on so we can share.
Okay, your Zoom looks different than mine.
Yeah.
All right, let me answer your question. Let me answer your question about airline travel. In Hayhoe's book, in Dr. Hayhoe's book, she talks about airline travel and how she.
Tony asked her to go to the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, right, Jan, hold that too.
Okay.
Okay, this screen here, Google Chrome,
Now,
that's
the
the Google Chrome.
okay. Hello? Okay, we got both of these going. This is a little more complicated. And my daughter's calling me on my watch, so.
We can't hear her. She's not speaking into the mic for the Zoom.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes.
now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The deal with the airline travel is, yes, it's very visible. It's a good thing for people to target to say, oh, you shouldn't fly, but it's more like a blaming strategy. The effect is pretty minimal, in terms of individual actions. What we need is systemic change worldwide. And it's really fun to say, that it would make a big difference, but Catherine Hayhoe says in her books that she groups her travel and stuff like that, but it's a good way to blame people. But it overall, it's not going to make or break climate change. We really need to go after those sources. Oh, you look at that. How awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So now I have to sit here. No, I'll sit here. Okay. So let's put that aside. Okay. First thing we said was we're going to get rid of all the coal. Can you hear me? Can you hear me online? Can you guys online hear me? Hello? Can you hear me online?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go in here in the coal. This is the detail. We're going to go into coal and we're going to say, stop building coal power plants. It's right here somewhere. Accelerate their retirement. And we're going to not subsidize them. Where is that one? Okay, I'm not finding it, but we're going to retire all the coal-fired power plants really fast, okay? All right. Okay, and the next one is that you wanted to model. So that did reduce the amount of coal that we're using. So the next thing we're going to do is what was the next thing that you guys asked for? Oh, nuclear power. We want to subsidize nuclear power. So that gets us to 2.3. It reduces it by 0.4. But this is just a subsidy for nuclear power. Let's pretend that the small modular reactors are developed. So that gets us down another point. Okay, what else do you guys want to do? Oh, okay, let's do all electric cars. There we go. And we want to do solar power too. Subsidize that. And really what happens is the renewables and solar power kind of compete with each other because you still don't have any incentive to reduce your use of gas or coal. You don't have any incentives in place. So what else do you want to do? You want to do carbon pricing. It's huge. It's huge. Well, these are all of these things you have to ask that question about, because this is a worldwide, everybody does it kind of thing. But yeah, we can get into a 20-minute discussion about why carbon pricing would, if you implement it in a place like the US, why that's going to cause other places to do that. But okay, yeah. Let's get rid of this little guy here. We'll go back here. So you want me to, well, let's keep going and try to get it down. Let's try to get it down to 2 degrees. Okay, you want a 0 population growth. How high popular do you think that's going to be to implement?
Who's gonna pay my social security?
Population growth goes down. I'm surprised none of you guys have said anything about planting trees. Yes, that's true.
Well, let's move on so that you can finish your slides.
That's it. This is it. Basic. Okay. All right. So it's time. So we're down. We planted trees and we deforested. And so let's also get rid of methane. There we go. We did it. Okay. Yay for us.
There. Hold on to that and go ahead, go back.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll try to get back to your slides.
So basically, my last slide says that if you compare the 4-way test to action on climate change, that as Rotarians, it's a good way to implement the 4-way test by acting on climate change. That's my message. And then I have that. That's my last slide.
We have time for a few questions. If somebody has a question, would you repeat it
Yes.
for the report?
Yes. Yes.
What's the title of the book and the author's name in case we want to read it?
Yeah, the name of the book is Saving Us. It's by Catherine Hayhoe. In your, she's very active. She's on the board of directors for Citizens Climate Lobby, which is what I'm very active in. I like Citizens Climate Lobby because it is a bipartisan organization that works to bridge the political. Bridge the political. I'm real active in Citizens Climate Lobby. It's a bipartisan organization that works to bridge the political divide. So, for example, when I gave my talk yesterday on Monday to the Lenore City Rotary Club, they were very interested in the fact that there's an organization called Republican, which also supports carbon pricing. It's a Republican-leaning organization, and Climate Interactive is what this Inroads model is about. So let's see. Go ahead. Yes. China actually has, okay. Question is, if all the countries in the world do the right thing except for China and India, where do we go? What happens? And it's a good question. China actually has a net carbon neutrality goal for 2060. They have put that in place, similar to the US has a goal of 2050 for carbon neutrality. They are implementing a lot of nuclear power plants. If you follow that at all, you know that they're building a lot of power plants, but they're also building coal-fired power plants. So that's, again, I can get into this, but if you have a price on carbon in the US, it forces, and you have a carbon border adjustment, that means that there's a tariff essentially for those countries that don't get rid of their carbon. They have to pay for any carbon intensive imports, then it adjusts the market. You can use the free market to encourage, instead of just begging them to please be good stewards of the earth, you can have economic policies that penalize people who aren't reducing their carbon emissions. So that is a whole field of study in terms of trade policy and being able to do that. And that's what Europe is going to implement that. So carbon, that's why China is already considering a price on carbon, is because Europe is going to have a penalty for imports of materials that are high carbon intensive, and that will penalize countries like China if they don't. Does that make some sense? So there are strategies for dealing with that.
Any more questions? Go ahead, Ellen.
How can we get the Inroads model to ourselves?
What you do is you put Inroads, E-N-R-O-A-D-S, Inroads in your Google search, and it pops up. It's real easy. And I think Tony's going to send out an email with links to Climate Interactive, Citizens Climate Lobby. So we're working mostly on federal action, where we're actually meeting with Representative Burchett and Representative Fleischman's, and talking to them about supporting climate action. That's what we do. And Blackburn and Haggerty, we actually met with 10 of our 11 congressional representatives in December. That's what we do.
One more question.
Well, we actually, I'm really happy that Representative Burchett actually has co-sponsored Growing Climate Solutions Act, which was one of the asks that we did, and both Blackburn and Haggerty have supported that in the Senate. So we're making some progress. We don't expect that there's going to be, a huge sea change given the political environment, but those small steps are important. And Fleischman's staffer actually said, that she was really happy to meet with us because we treat her with respect and we listen to what they have to say, and that she said, I trust you all. So Virginia Dale and Keith Klein and Dale Visser and Todd Waterman, many of these people that they met with Fleischman's staff.
Maybe next time you get up to go to the bathroom, we can figure it out.
Hear you? Okay, great. Anybody on Zoom have a question?
Really? Oh.
Okay.
This is great. I really enjoy being back in Oak Ridge again and seeing you all and talking to you, and support for nuclear. And
You have a couple minutes after if people
Yep.
have questions. Okay, so Jan will be here a bit. Here you go. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
if
run
you-
you off now. Thank you, Jan. Can't take our mic there.
I don't.
No.
This is a little more complicated than most with the
Well, anyhow, hey,
with the dual.
I live in the world of Zoom being fun. Okay, a couple of things I want to mention. As she said, she sent me 4 or 5 links, and one of the links is En-ROADS. And in my Monday email to members, I'm going to put all those links for anybody interested. As we know, this is a challenging thing. I will say, Jan, though, that you're going to find out in a minute that your presentation was just a bit flawed for this club. And so you'll find out why that is, because you forgot one of our parts of the 4-way test. So